do you give them a grade or an assessment or any kind of feedback on their problem solving abilities?
In my class, it's a little bit different because we work directly on debugging and problem solving, and we even do logic problems sometimes. So they do get a grade. They get a passing grade for trying, genuinely trying, and then so that would be like the equivalent of a C. And then if they are successful, they get an A. So we work on finding bugs in projects, and anytime they problem solve, we call it a high five moment, and there's recognition for that more so than a grade other times when we're not doing it formally. So let's say they were really stuck, and I gave them a hint and I walked away, and they spent another 5 minutes trying to figure it out, and they did figure it out. They tell me, "Oh, Miss Hagaman, it's time for a high five," and I go over there and I high five them, and they explain. And we're also toying with the idea of a high five board. So I think problem solving is something that the students enjoy more when it's just kind of that environment where that's what's expected, and you really celebrate when a problem is solved more than making it part of their grade per se.
Do you use any other kind of classroom management tools?
I've used Edmodo and the badges system before, and I'm familiar with Classroom Dojo. Actually, in my classroom, I have a low-tech version of that. I have something called Hagabucks, which are they double as their bathroom pass, their extra credit. They can turn in assignments late with them, and they get a set amount per semester, so they get 8. But anytime there's a really amazing accomplishment, or they've done something outstanding, like really helping a struggling student or something really kind for someone else, they can earn another one. So we keep track that way. They're actual paper dollars with my name on them that they get. The electronic version in a high school class felt a little elementary school, but they really like the feel of the fake money.
And then last question I have is, in general, how do you assess projects, given that they're pair programming?
So I think there's 2 answers to that question. The first is every project is mastery based. So if they completed the project and it works the way it was supposed to work, then that's an A+. It's kind of self-grading. I mean, they did all of the coding, they did everything that they were supposed to do. And then my rubric from there is if it works, but maybe there's one thing wrong, that's like an A-. If it doesn't work, but the reason is like 1 or 2 simple fixes, that's a B, and so on. They don't get lower than, they don't get lower than a C- if they were working on it the whole time in class and on task. So that's another project or classroom management strategy there. As long as they're trying, they are guaranteed to pass. But if they're off task, then they're not. And so that's really motivating for kids. And then you mentioned the pair programming. And so it's true that you could potentially get a student who's doing more of the work than one other student. The driving and navigating really takes care of most of that problem, especially if you're monitoring the room and saying, okay, you're not being a very good navigator. They're looking at the instructions and trying to drive at the same time while you're talking to your friend. And in the past, I've tried different systems where I give them points for being a good driver and a good navigator, but I've just started doing pair evaluation anonymously after they've had a couple different partners, and then giving them that feedback and them seeing whether their partner said, they did 50% of the work, they did their job as both driver and navigator, and so on. So it's kind of an end of the 9 weeks or end of semester grade after they've worked with a couple different people.
And so how often are you changing the pairs?
We try to change every project. And so it's a lot of work because I really put a lot of thought into the pairs, but I also think it's really beneficial for them to work with various people that have different skill sets than they do. And that way also they're meeting more people in the class, so they have more people to ask if they get stuck. Like I've worked with Josie, and I know that she's really good at making a graph. So if I have a problem, we can go ask her, that kind of thing. Oh yeah, that it also prevents that one student from getting stuck with that one other student that is not going to pull their fair share of the work. And so they get way less discouraged if they get stuck with that kid, because they know that it's only temporary and short term. And also it's beneficial for, like I said, my peer feedback, because if they've only had one partner and then I give them the feedback from that partner, even without a name on it, they know who it was. So if they've had several, it's harder for them to trace that feedback back to a specific person.
And is that a checklist or is it actually written out?
It's a scale from 1 to 5, like my, one being absolutely not, and 5 being 100% true. Things like my partner participated fully in the role of navigator and driver, and they rate them. And then they're allowed to give a constructive comment explaining why they rated them that way.
Okay, great. Well, Melody, I think you covered everything that we, wanted and more. And thank you so much for your time. Good to see you.
You're welcome. You too.